September 25th. Early this morning I drove with 3 other guys to Teremki. It was a most sensitive undertaking. The whole area is still full of landmines, partly contaminated with Loess. Even now, days after the fighting, the empty positions reach out for our lives. Eerily quiet is the field of death, treacherous still, because many thousand kilos of dynamite are lying in the earth, waiting for a wrong step to rise up, roaring in a shrill, daring flame. The responsibility is a heavy pressure. I should go alone and at my own risk. Now, through their pleas, the other 3 have worn me down, and I have taken them with me. Everything here is sinister, still fresh the traces of the terrible battle, but there is no shrieking or whistling in the air here, or thunders of detonations. Pochtawaja space without drum fire, walking upright close to the field. Who would have thought something like this a few days ago? My God, what a sight! Along the total length of the high forest of Teremki, friend and enemy are still lying there, exactly how they died 6 weeks ago. Yes, this Teremki forest, which once was a magnificent forest, but now there are only ripped tree trunks, and in between the horror assaults you. Damned me! A soldier should not stroll as a pedestrian on those battlefields which have not completely absorbed all the blood, where within the barbed wires there are hanging things, which were worn by soldiers once during battle, but which after the battle, no. Then we reach a huge pile of rubble, Teremki. All around us a landscape of moon craters. These were our battle positions. Then we are standing at the spot where we buried the dead comrades. The earth has been tilted many times. Nothing is discernible anymore. There, where we laid them to their final rest, are now huge funnels at the bottom of which we can see murky groundwater. How fortunate that the young women, mothers and brides know nothing about all this. These were indeed our positions. Many thousands of shells have mutilated them. One can only imagine how the ditches and passages ran, and cannot fathom that once you were crouched in there for 48 hours at a time. It is incomprehensible that a few men were able to flee this hell. We are driving back, nobody is speaking, silently each on his own with his thoughts. Farewell from Teremki, from all these dear comrades. The memory of this piece of earth is heavy. How can anybody in his lifetime forget these zones of horror? We are homeward bound, towards the huge plumes of smoke, back to the burning Kiev. Poor city. We spared you more than was good for us, and now gigantic fires are glowing inside you. Your body convulses under the beatings of terrible explosions. Not your own sons, but the sons of Judah are ripping these mortal wounds, mangling your beautiful body past recognition. When will this horrible war find its end? Everybody is telling me I am seeing the world all black in an alarmist way, no comrades. To the contrary, I see white. I am seeing white snowy areas, and many of you all dead. Don't think, Hannes, for heaven's sake, don't think. September 26th. Many kilometers wide, the center of the city is one ocean of flames. Further and further, the fire eats away at it. 2 more urban districts have been evacuated this morning. Approximately 20,000 people are homeless. Half of them are occupying with all their belongings the adjacent streets and plazas. What a pitiful sight. This morning, pioneers blew up the roads close by. It just had to be done. The SS Special Command is extremely busy. Interrogations and executions non-stop. Somewhat suspicious individuals are simply shot in the street, and their bodies remain right there where they fell down. Men, women and children are walking by, talking and laughing. This is nothing special, a dead person, not much. The soles of the shoes are stepping in the fresh puddles of blood. The wide sidewalk is full of red traces. You Russians, who will ever understand you? The Einsatzkommandos of the Waffen-SS are very busy as well. All Jews, without exception, have until noon of the 25th to report. Sure, only half of them show up, but nobody will evade us, for a tight belt of outposts surrounds the city. That very day, the revenge for our comrades who lost their lives in the mine attacks is beginning. Now, 24 hours later, already 2,000 Hebrews have been sent to Jehovah. I have a long conversation with the young SS soldiers of this kill commando. They freed all the larger cities which were touched by our advance of the Jewish population. They understand their butcher job well. These boys are experienced killers, I am astonished. We soldiers in the first attack wave have never thought about the stuff that happens behind us in the cities we leave, as we're chasing further after the enemy. The perspective of the front soldiers is forward, towards the enemy. He tells me about the Holocaust of Zhytomyr. At that time we were bloody beginners, says the 19-year-old. For 2 days they had to dig 50-metre-long trenches. Each trench was calculated for 250 Jews. We killed a total of 1,800 Jews in Zhytomyr. 5,000 somehow died before. Then, on the 3rd day the trenches are ready. Everybody from baby to oldest senior had to strip naked. He laughs and says I should have a look. We are riding our bikes to the outskirts of the city, to a steep gorge. I will cut this short. The food in my stomach is curiously loose. What I see there is terrible, this horrible picture I will never forget in my entire life. At the edge of the gorge there are Jews standing. The machine guns are whipping into them. They fall over the edge, 50 meters. Whatever stays at the edge is swept down. When the 1,000 quota is filled, the heap of dead bodies is detonated and closed up. Well, isn't that a great idea, the detonation? Asks the blonde with the smiling boy face. My God, my God. Without a word, I turn and run more than walk back to the city. This boy is 19 years old. All this does not only leave traces on the clothes. What will happen when these people return into the homeland, back to their brides and women? September 27th. The huge fire in the city centre continues. New explosions, new fire breakouts, stored ammunition explodes. September 29th. On the road once more. After a 24-hour forced march, we reach Prilupki tonight. We drive through the countryside. Here and there we encounter a few gunshots by a few nuts in lost positions who will be defeated shortly. The destruction of the 5 surrounded Russian armies is complete. Cautious estimates speak of 650,000 prisoners in our hands. Their endless rows pass us. Maybe they are the same guys who fought opposite us for weeks. For days now they stood through on a lost position. We encircled them. Closer and closer we drew the ring. Hour-long gunfire destroyed mercilessly those who were trapped. It was insanity not to surrender. The long line of Soviets passes. What kind of people are they? In their eyes and in their demeanour is something strange, something dull, completely un-European, even unhuman. Bolshevism has destroyed their soul and dehumanized them to an animal level. Therefore they fight out of instinct like animals in a herd. It is not the personal braveness of the individual who is called to sacrifice his life for a greater idea, but the instinctual defense against danger. Bolshevism has consciously destroyed everything soulful, everything individual and private that also makes up the character and the value of a human being. What is left is the animal in the Bolshevik, who, however, does not have its finer instincts. Humans in the state of animals are much lower than the actual animal. That is why the animal Bolshevik is so hard and bloodthirsty, cruel and stubborn against the enemy and against himself. This is how to understand the demeanour of the Soviet in this war. What looks like braveness is brutality. September 30th. We will be staying a few days in Prilupki in order to cleanse the surrounding forests of single Bolsheviks. For Russian conditions, my lodgings are pretty passable. While most of the people swarm out, I stay behind as important map entries and tactical drawings have to be made. First, I wash myself thoroughly and shave, and then I sleep for a few hours. For lunch, there is a generous helping from the soup kitchen, of which the Russian families devour the most part hungrily, as so often is the case. These poor, starved people. It is always the same. A piece of dry bread makes them happy and content for hours. I am sure these people have seen better days many years ago at the time of the Tsar. Again and again I have to ask myself how it is possible that here in the midst of the richest region of Russia, in the wheat silo of Europe, people are starving and have to lead the life of a dog. Unscrupulously, these Bolshevik criminals have sacrificed the life and happiness of their people for an armament which in its scope is without parallel. If our motto was first cannons, then butter, the Soviet Union's was no butter, no housing, just the bare necessities in clothing. No culture, only cannons. The Bolsheviks have succeeded in deceiving the entire world about the extent of their armament. They had imagined that one day their army of millions, equipped with unimaginable weapons, would start to march westward and trample down all of Europe. Is there a single soldier who doubts that such a march would have led to a world catastrophe of unknown proportions for all peoples? Does anyone doubt that in Germany no stone would have been left unturned? Well, something else has come to pass. And you, comrade, and even myself, we have given it our all, given all our blood for this. We all underestimated, though, the leadership as well as the smallest soldier, the Russian himself, and the huge degree of his armament. The loot of weapons is much larger than we expected the entirety of the arms of the Russian army to be, not to mention the aircraft, tanks, and automatic weapons. And as for the Red Army soldier himself, he is the toughest enemy, the grimmest fighter that we have encountered up until now. The 6 weeks of trench warfare outside of Kiev has demonstrated better than ever his strength, as well as his weakness. The strength of the Red Army soldier lies in the defense. His natural inclinations enable him to masterfully utilize all advantages in the terrain. The most distinguishing trait of the Russian soldier is his stoic holding out until the end, often out of fear of the commissars. The enemy has proven to be nimble at delaying tactics and well-planned organized retreats, in addition to camouflaging his withdrawals. The mining of the abandoned terrain is always fresh and always updated with new techniques. Most of the time they use timed fuses with an unknown life expectancy. The evacuation of Kiev was a masterpiece in this regard, for among other things we eliminated over these past few days were mines with a lifespan of 165 days. The Russian has proven to be a master in the construction of mock installations. Their field positions are unsurpassed. Their attacks are predominantly executed in stoic mass advances. If they do not succeed, they simply repeat them until they do. Almost always, a recurring characteristic of their attack is prepping the field with intensive artillery fire supported by tanks. The time of attack is most often at dusk or during the night. The infantry leads the advance in tight formations, often upright in a strict march. Their digging in after reaching a certain position is fast and skilled. The Russian favors guerrilla warfare. Here he is the champion through his cunning methods of fighting. The partisan war has been well planned, prepared, and executed by the Red leadership. Let's not forget to mention the artillery, those goddamned Bolshevik batteries which are considerably greater in strength than we ever imagined. Their weapons of all calibers seem infinite. We encounter them even on the smallest of stages. The Russian's arsenal of weapons includes, besides his own brands, nearly all the brands from other nations, including French, English, American, and even German. Single batteries with missiles are occasionally encountered. Ammunition is available in good quantity and quality. A special place is occupied by the fire grenades, which I have encountered in several varieties, like phosphorus grenades and thermite grenades with horribly surprising firepower. Ammunition is always used abundantly. The destructive fire of the Red batteries is often aimed at a single point for days on end. In times of light combat activity, even the smallest target, like a single rider or messenger, is attacked with a disproportionate amount of ammunition. Radio and wireless operations. Here lies their huge investment. The Russian works here with a bunch of cunning methods as well, but this is not the decisive factor, for he conducts deceptive radio traffic. Upon retreat, long after the departure of the commands, radio transmitters are left at the old location. But so what? Between the Red Army General Staff and the divisions, there exists usually only a single radio wire. Between the divisions and the regiments and battalions, there are only messengers. The failure of the Russian radio service came home to them bitterly, and the defeat of the Red leadership can be primarily attributed to it. The 4th of October. Much faster than expected, we leave Prilukki on the morning of the 1st. By way of a 24-hour forced march, we are supposed to reach the heavily threatened part of the front near Olkana. In Romny, during a crazy mix-up in the pitch-black night, I become separated from our troops. Together with brave Sepp, we wander on the badly destroyed terrain between the fronts for days without finding the division. At the Putyvy bridgehead, we stumble upon Guderian's panzer units. This morning we finally rediscover our troops 112 kilometers to the south. The experiences of this adventurous journey alone could fill all the pages of this diary. The 5th of October. Once again, we receive an important yet risky order. Until the arrival of the division in 4 or 5 days, the location of Olkana is to be defended by the Mobile Panzer Division against overwhelming enemy fire. Before leaving this morning, a few combat vehicles of the 9th Panzer Division threw the enemy back a few kilometers to give us time to dig in. In haste, only those positions of bare necessity are dug up. Boy, oh boy, there's something in the air. You've been abandoned, small troop. We are the very front line, and the 2nd and 6th wave all together. No infantry, no artillery, nothing, absolutely nothing. What a mess. Just like during the Teremki days, swarms of Red fighters and bombers are glued to us. Hut after hut is destroyed by fire. In the evening, the Red Schweine attack with a loud hurrah our position, running right into our machine gun fire. It is obvious that these are poorly trained troops. During the night, there is crazy activity over there. A spy unit brings the reconnaissance. The Reds send out another set of troops. The 6th of October. In the light of early dawn, the Reds attack again. However, this time these are not the amateurs who storm us, but experienced rabbits who force the sweat from our pores despite the coolness of the morning. In a careful counterattack, we cannot take risks with the few men that we have. We succeed in throwing back the Reds. We even take a few prisoners. Since tonight, we have encountered the famous Moscow Proletarian Guard, and Asians, lots of Asians, who, as demonstrated by the attack, fight with utmost determination and devilish cunning. We unfortunately suffer losses, among whom are 2 of our best, Lieutenants Forrester and Cole. It's a shame, such wonderful men. For the first time, we are visited this afternoon by American bombers, who incinerate the last of the huts with their on-board cannons. A little later, those dogs attack again. We have to evacuate the position and retreat toward the hills in the northeast, all while fighting. Only by giving it our all are we able to keep the fanatical howling horde at bay. These are no longer human beings. Damn. Have we stumbled into a cowboys and Indians war like in Karl May novels? Like agile cats, they climb into the trees. Shots whip over us from impossible angles. Just like the niggers during our time in La Berlière, they grip their long knives between their teeth. What a treacherous Asian mob. Damn. Gentlemen, it looks like we'll be burying corpses. Just when our despair is at its greatest, the Olkana miracle occurs. Reinforcements arrive. All of a sudden, there they are, our brave comrades from the infantry. Nobody saw them coming during the heat of the battle. More and more of them arrive, and group after group files into our defensive position. That same evening, the Bolsheviks are thrown far back by our counterattack. Unfortunately, we lose sight of the enemy in the darkness. We retake our old village position. The infantry provides strong protective fire, allowing us to get some sleep. This is the frontline brotherhood. Soon, we are all snoring deeply and dreamlessly in our dirty holes. The 7th of October. The weather is changing. An icy northern wind whips over the vast plains. Slowly but surely the cold is seeping through the thin cloth of our shabby coats. Our hands are numb and stiff. Olkana lies in shambles. There is not a single room to be found far and wide that could offer us some warmth. And slowly, a premonition comes over me. It is gradually becoming clear to even the most incorrigible optimist that the hardest part is still before us. The second merciless enemy is advancing the Russian winter. There is no Russian attack this evening. The night passes by quietly. The 8th of October. It has become lousy cold, heavy snowfall with ice storms from the north. Operations of any kind are impossible in this shitty weather. Nevertheless, we must move forward in our assault detachment during the evening hours. The roads are rivers of mud. Man and machine each give it their best. Without any significant enemy contact, we press on to Nidragalo. Lying on the roads are dead horses, abandoned cars, burned-out tanks, uniforms that have been ripped to shreds, ammunition scattered all over the roads and fields, harvests that have been destroyed and trampled over. Shortly after Nidragalo, we cross paths with the marching 165th Infantry Division, which has commenced its attack on the neighbouring area, and whose open flank we are supposed to protect. When night falls, we form igloos and await an attack from the Bolsheviks. But nothing happens. The enemy must have retreated even further. The 9th of October. Chasing the retreating enemy in the direction of Sumi. The 10th of October. Relentless snow showers mixed with rain make any further progress impossible. Yesterday evening we arrived in Krawino. The rain has transformed the trenches into lakes all around us. We are trapped pitifully in our nests. On the radio we heard news of the victorious encirclement battle near Vyazma and Bryansk. The eastern campaign has been practically decided. The remnants of the Red Army are one step away from annihilation. The Bolshevik leaders have fled from Moscow. Is the end in sight for the East? We hear this and even more over the loudspeakers. Surely this will be the headline in the daily papers at home. I grab my head. How is this possible? Has our leadership gone mad overnight? All of this is not true. It cannot be true. All of us here see too clearly what is going on. Do these gentlemen have blindfolds over their eyes? What is the homeland supposed to think? Our wives, mothers and brides will go crazy with happiness when they hear this news. They will cry tears of joy that the horrible bloodshed will be over in a few days, and will expect their men and sons home by Christmas at the latest. For heaven's sake, the reality is totally different. The Eastern armies are encountering the ultimate test of nerves. We Germans are not used to winter combat in freezing temperatures and all of this mud. Is it really necessary to employ such devices, such poisonous stuff? At home, there will be a terrible awakening from these happy illusions. In a few weeks, the newspapers will be full of black crosses like never before. The 11th of October. Again, a powerful snowstorm. All of a sudden, there is a deep freeze, 7 degrees C below zero. The roads are frozen solid. We would be able to advance if there was any fuel. Gas and supply trucks are still far behind, somewhere hopelessly sunk into the mud. About 60% of the cars are somewhere stuck in the mud. That's right, this is what a victorious march forward looks like, and the muddy season has only just begun, and already after 2 days of rain we have these losses. All of this does not fit quite well with yesterday's victory fanfare. The 26th of October. For the first time in several days I am without a fever today. A smelly hut and some straw was my hospital bed. This treacherous Russian fever held me in its remarkably strong grip this time. How utterly abandoned I felt in that half-dark, deserted room. The 27th of October. It is always the same. A dreary leaden sky driven by strong winds and alternating snow and rain showers. The roads and fields are the same. Far and wide, nothing but mud and muck, sometimes up to a metre in depth. The question of supply has become a huge problem. This shouldn't imply that we do not have anything to eat. Thank God there are plenty of geese and ducks here. But we are missing tobacco, sugar, coffee, and all those wonderful things which have to be supplied to us from behind the lines. This is why Sergeant Roth made for himself today a makeshift cigarette from newspaper and German tea. It actually didn't taste that bad, and was copied a few times. The craziest of mixtures are tested. Some groups spend their time on producing sugar, others on distilling schnapps from dry bread, which gives them an extract of a pure, dry alcohol. All of this happens inside stinky, small huts. Anyone who does not absolutely have to go outside during this shitty weather stays inside these pathetic shacks, choosing to endure all the repulsiveness of these pigsties. What does it look like inside one of these huts, which obviously only have a single living space which we share with a family of 7? In the centre of it all is a tremendous stove, which takes up about a third of the whole room. The house is more or less built around it. The wooden cots built right next to it represent the bedroom for the entire family. Underneath the cots, and in the many niches around the stove, is storage for their valuables. There are pigs squealing, chickens roosting, and potatoes in storage, along with other supplies. Hooks have been placed in the ceiling here and there, from which a cradle is suspended. A wooden bowl with a small child hangs by a rope from the ceiling. The babushka spends many hours of the day keeping the cradle in perpetual motion by never abandoning the sling tied around her foot, which is also connected to the cradle. She only moves from this spot to sit with the rest of the clan for the never-ending potato suppers. Anyone who is able to hold a spoon sits around a huge pot, and amidst the loud smacking and slurping they dine, until they are full and burping. All of this only increases the feeling of a prehistoric atmosphere, which one would expect in the huts from early civilization. Possession of paper indicates education and wealth. Those who have even a small amount to be able to decorate their walls are well aware of this luxury. In our hut as well, there are torn newspaper scraps, pages from old school books, invoices, children's drawings, and doodling as decoration on the walls. Out of admiration for the children's paintings, and with all due respect for the attachment to the newspaper and its multiple uses, one is overcome with horror at seeing these furnished walls. Not only because of the dirt, smoke, soot and soil and yellowed paper scraps. No, it's mainly because of the existence of the small house pets that live their infinite lives behind this paper. We move the benches away from the wall, but at night, when we hear a small creaking and rustling inside the paper, we know that the bell is ringing for them to come out. There are no handles or locks on the doors, which are nothing more than planks mounted on hinges used to close up a hole in the wall. In some places, so many old rags and pieces of felt have been nailed on top of each other that the planks become jammed. The plank itself is protected from drafts by way of a thick tapestry of straw, old clothes and other stuff. The tiny windows are completely sealed during winter. However, they do not open in the summer either. The broken panes have been replaced by the babushka with wads of rags and small sacks of straw. All of our senses have suffered greatly during the war. We have listened to screams and moans. We have witnessed many who have suffered brutal pain, so many images about which we will be silent forever. Our noses have fared quite badly too. The smell of smoke, the stench of corpses in the summer heat, and much more. But one memory will remain permanently in our minds: the heavy, grim atmosphere inside our living quarters. Just imagine the following: local people of various ages, surrounded by many children, who altogether have not washed themselves for years, other than taking a sip of water into their mouths, spitting this onto their hands, taking another sip, and wetting their faces with it. And so this is it. Indigenous people, with their many small children, pigs under the stove, sheepskins which have not been removed from the stove for generations, gummed-up windows, barricaded doors. Add to this 15 soldiers with their weapons, all joined together for supper around a flickering petroleum lamp. Afterwards they smoke heavily, countering the smelly haze of the machorka against the even worse one of the German tea. If this isn't a recipe for stale air, compound this with the jolly warm stench of bodies. And it is inside this room where 25 humans sleep in the narrowest of quarters. A unique aspect of this atmosphere is the lamp. In the division offices we have generators which produce electricity for the lights, as the officers need to work for hours at night, unlike the common soldier, who uses the darkness mainly for fighting or sleeping. If he wants to carve out a little circle of the darkness for his own business, like I want to do right now, he will sometimes have a carbon lamp or even a candle. He has to rely on the light source of the particular country he is in. Here it is a petroleum lamp in all its glorious perfection. Without question, the simplest contraptions are the small vodka bottles, suspended from the ceiling by a wire. Suspended in oil dangles a piece of twine, rag, or felt. In especially lucky circumstances, there is even a wick. These squeeze through the opening of the bottle and burn at the top with a sooty, flickering small flame. Such a smoking candle is in front of me right now as I am writing these lines. A step above this is the oil lamp without its protective glass cylinder. The wear and tear of time and its continual movement by the soldiers destroyed the glass long ago. Despite this, it provides enough light for one's surrounding space and to write one loving letter after another to the folks back home. Croesus was a man who was able to distribute a beam of light from an oil lamp, with or without its protective glass cylinder. And where do we currently sleep? I should first mention that the main preoccupation during these days of no combat is sleeping. God knows we have lots to catch up on. Therefore, those who are not writing, eating, or frisking themselves for lice are sleeping. We sleep all over the place. Is there anyone who still asks for a blanket? A wooden bench, the floor, a large table, ultimate bliss is straw. Our sleep is deep and dreamless, but at the same time light, alert for any danger, which holds back the nightmares. We dream just as much of normal sleep with deep, quiet breathing, without any itching lice, as we do of a bed with white sheets and pajamas. But we will have to relearn all that, just as we will have to relearn to undress at night. Indeed, that is a wonderful image. The most beautiful, however, the most cherished dream is home, our home. Those who look at photographs of their children, worn out from constant handling, the light eyes of the women and girls in the photos, whom we look at with a quiet smile, know this. Out here we only have the strength to endure the hardships and exhausting tasks because of the love from home that embraces us. The dream of a white tablecloth, of a tender kiss, this is the source of our strength. The dream of a good life, the war drives through France, which have taken on an image of sun and wine here in the East, is the last adventurer's dream. Yet that adventure no longer has any allure for us. Rather, the quiet of home is the secret sun in all of our hearts. The longed-for, blessed Army Postal Service is its messenger. For 14 more days we are stuck in Crowino, and then finally the muddy season is over, and on November 10th a strong freeze suddenly sets in. The thermometer falls almost overnight to 12 degrees below zero. November 15th. It is finally here. The ground is frozen solid. We can start. November 16th. Sumi falls after a hard battle. The losses are huge. Officer Leder, who went out on a reconnaissance mission with his group, did not return. All are dead. November 18th. We reach Lebedin. These past 3 days have disturbed the division quite a bit. Only 50% of the weapons and vehicles are operational. The division therefore receives orders to vacate Lebedin until further notice, and to repair the artillery and vehicles as quickly as possible. Lebedin, by Russian standards, is a pretty country town and paradise for us, after the lice-infested Panjay huts of Crowino. The Soviets have erected here large administrative buildings. On the outskirts of the town are airfields and barracks, nothing but Potemkin villages. From afar they are imposing, with their whitewashed chalk facades. But what a great disappointment when you're standing right in front of them, or when you even enter them. Metre-long cracks in the ceilings and walls, doors that hang crooked on their hinges, which neither open nor close, staircases that are bent out of shape, swollen window frames and uneven floors are the least of the problems, all of which astonish us. None of the buildings is older than 5 or 6 years. One thing strikes me here again. Nowhere in this workers' paradise have we encountered an electrical line under the stucco ceilings. The wiring is always done in the form of a twisted extension cord along the wall and the ceiling. They are not even familiar with insulated lead pipes, which are mandatory in our country. It is always the same. Even in the cities we find shocking primitivism and poverty. But what about the wages in this workers' paradise? How high are the prices for life's essentials? Here are a few examples, but it must first be mentioned, though, that the ruble, prior to the war breaking out, was set at the exchange rate of 1.82 Reichsmark. Average wages, skilled specialist *, 300 rubles. Red Army soldier, 7 rubles. Officer, 210 rubles. The amount of rent is determined by income on average, 80 rubles. A good suit, 1,500 to 2,000 rubles. A pair of shoes, 200 to 300 rubles. A winter coat made from plain fabric, 2,000 to 3,000 rubles. A goose, 120 rubles. Eggs and butter, 25 rubles. Immediately within the first few days, a militia was formed of trustworthy Ukrainians who have proven themselves to be faithful and brave comrades during these crucial hours over the upcoming weeks. A partisan group of 2,000 men has been reported. We deploy our men and encounter initial exchanges with these well-armed gangs. They possess machine guns, mortars, packs, and even infantry weapons. As these Schweine are beginning to seriously threaten Lebedin, we acquire reinforcements from Aktyrka. At one point, we even have to flee, leaving our dead and injured men behind, whom we later find mutilated like animals. In the town itself, insecurity is mounting. A petty officer is mugged. The culprit is hanged from the gallows on the very same day. The next evening I was attacked by 2 thugs. It was pitch dark out, and they were both able to escape into the labyrinth of housing nearby. One of them must have been badly injured, for during our sweep of the area the next morning we noticed traces of blood all over the place. Nevertheless, we have not been able to apprehend the perpetrators. During the afternoon, 10 hostages were shot dead. We are now acting with an iron fist. The gallows in the town square is always busy. Executions are the daily norm. It has to be this way. We receive bad news from the front. On November 21st, the part of the division that had a chance to recuperate has left in a rush in order to meet up with Petersdorf Group, which is in charge of the extremely dangerous Oberjan sector of the front. Meanwhile, it has become terribly cold, rarely above -25 degrees to -30 degrees C. The majority of us are still lacking winter clothes, and we encounter our first cases of frostbite. The 12th of December. The largest part of the division leaves Lebedin. In a sleeper car, i.e. mainly by railroad tracks, we reach Oberjan on the 19th. The 22nd of December. The division is divided into individual security groups, which are now under the command of different units. The front here is very thin, and not at all without breaks. Near Rashawa, the demarcation line to the neighbouring army, there is a 40 kilometres length of the front line that is unoccupied. What we encounter here at the front is not at all encouraging. This is supposed to be our winter position. Are we not supposed to halt the onslaught of the Reds here? You just want to cry. A few holes have been blasted into the frozen solid ground, a little bit of barbed wire, that's all. The men who we relieve have bony, pale faces. There is a strange glimmer in their eyes. They shake our hands in silence and slowly make their way to the rear. An hour later, a direct hit brings us 2 deaths and several wounded. Tonight is the first mass attack from the Bolsheviks. With the support of tanks, fast ski battalions come over us like a tornado. An icy eastern wind forces snow into our faces. Our eyes are swollen shut. Our weapons refuse to operate. We have a visibility of no more than 10 steps in front of us. Here and there a red tank appears out of the snow, like a ghost, often only meters away. The muffled roars of hand grenades, wild screams, horrific hand-to-hand combat is happening all around us. 2 cannons are overrun. There is no more holding on everyone for himself. In Kolkos, 2 kilometres behind the front line, our group gathers back together. We wait and wait, for half of our unit is still missing, no one else appears. The drama has begun. The 23rd of December. We receive reinforcements during the night, but the men are so exhausted they're on the verge of collapsing. They have done the unimaginable, marching 30 kilometres in knee-deep snow during an ice storm, even bringing with them 2 cannons. Under these circumstances, a counter-attack is senseless, yet tomorrow it will be too late. We do not understand why the Reds have not followed through. Under strong tank attacks, new holes are blasted, and the Panjay huts and potato bins are transformed into bunkers. The 24th of December. There is increased reconnaissance activity on both sides during the day. It has gotten even colder, -30 degrees C, someone says. As we are already lacking ammunition, along with 2 men, I take a small Panjay sleigh and we start to move toward the battalion command post. The small, emaciated Russian horse trots with small steps. In front of its mouth is a cloud of steam. Its matted hair is crusted over with ice. It's so cold our breath wants to freeze. All of us have pulled up the collars of our coats. Ice hangs from our caps and our beards, even though we are hiding our heads down around our shoulders. Our legs are wrapped with sheepskin. Without mercy, the storm blows the snow like sand over the small path, which has been frozen over by glass-like ice. Our horse stumbles along. The cold rains relentlessly over this vast landscape which we try in vain to shut out. No one says a word, for it seems as if each word once uttered will freeze. The miserable huts stand frozen solid like glass in the snow. Beneath our hard steps, the snow crunches loudly as we hurriedly try to shorten the distance, for the cold aches like an open wound. Finally, after 2 hours of exhausting stomping in the snow, a small hill appears. Alongside the hill you can see the exposed, tall birch trees, but as you approach you are able to recognize that there are caves within the earth, in front of which are squeaking lids intended as doors. This is the entrance to the battalion command post, which is under fire every day. The interior of the room is dominated by a stove made of clay and dirt, with the chimney being nothing more than tin cans stacked on top of each other. A meagre light provides just enough illumination to study maps and write orders. 4 officers are sitting inside with their legs crossed. All non-essential items have been stacked outside. Above the stove there is bread and meat on a wooden plank. It was frozen and had to be thawed. Just like all the other food items, it freezes during the short distance it takes to get from the field kitchen to the bunker and has to once again be thawed. Suddenly a heavy fire attack races over the hill. We seek protection in the soldiers' dugouts, which are of course the same as ours, meaning nothing but a hole in the ground, 1.7 meters wide and 50 centimeter high, without any light or warmth, and intended to accommodate 2 men. These days, quite a few holes have lost their owners, and so we find refuge easily. 30 minutes later, and the firestorm has passed. With stiff bones, we crawl into the daylight, only to see that our good little cunny, along with our most valuable sleigh, has been beaten to pieces, lying in a pool of red broth. I am so angry that the curses I try to shout are stuck in my throat. How are we supposed to bring the precious ammunition up to the front, to our frontline brothers? A short while later, a group of 10 men with heavy sacks and ammunition on their backs leaves the battalion. In silence and frost-bitten hands, each of them steps grimly into the footprints of the man in front of him. Oh, how our thoughts are so different. Today is Christmas Eve, and at this time everyone will be lighting the Christmas tree at home. Little Erica's eyes beaming, Roselle standing there next to her smiling quietly. Her mother's heart will be heavy. All her thoughts will be far away, here with me. One burning wish will be with all. God, let him return safely to us. Just don't think, don't become soft. Wipe away the ice from under your eyes. Our comrades are waiting desperately for the grenades, because today the Reds, who hold nothing sacred in this world, will begin their storm. Someone is moaning, his feet frozen. He can hardly walk anymore. His load is distributed among us, and we march on. Just hurry up, hurry. It is already dark when we arrive half dead from exhaustion at our group. We receive official orders to get some sleep in one of the holes. Ridiculous. Who is able to sleep when upstairs there is thundering and howling, and every man is needed? So out of these ditches we go. Our shells tear into the rows of storming Reds, shredding large holes into the Asian pack. These guys fear shells like the plague, since there are no tanks to back them up as they retreat shortly thereafter. O holy night! Twice they returned tonight, and twice we heard them back with their heads blooded. O holy night! The candle burns all night long in the earthen bunker of the medical orderly. Moans and screams can be heard from there. Near the morning hours it quiets down. Our battalion does not have to suffer any more. The 25th of December. We are huddled outside in the firing hole with our machine guns. We handle our weapons carefully and cautiously. We cannot repeat what happened on December 22nd. Not a drop of oil can touch the steel, for it will freeze immediately. We look over to where the enemy is lying, he who would love to form an alliance with winter, and who tries again and again to break through our positions. We have learned quite a few things from him already. We wear our shirts over our coats now, and as we have no white paint, each morning we quickly piss on the steel door, then spread snow over it, and there is your camouflage. Soviet fighters approach, howling in low-altitude flights. The whole mess is now starting up again. We grab our ammunition clips. The enemy's artillery is revving up. We are lucky to have such deep snow, for on the rock-hard frozen ground, the effects of the detonations are so much stronger. We hear the tanks rattling closer, and we know that there will be no rest for many hours. Over on the other side, the enemy's snowshoe units are emerging silently from the forest in their white coats. Our machine guns are barking, our hand grenades are ready. Our comrades inside the bunkers have been alerted and are firing while standing behind the trees, as the icy and crusty earth offers no cover. And as so often has been the case within the last few days, the hard fight begins, man against man, with their own weapons becoming a dangerous liability, because their hands freeze to them if they touch the metal with bare fingers. Machine gun bursts shred the white bark off the trees. The air is humming with them. We can hear the heavy ones way ahead of time, and everyone breathes a sigh of relief once they pass by us. All of a sudden, flames jump out of the forest. An enemy tank has been destroyed. The fighting dies down. Artillery and guns are quiet. We look at the fire and think that over there is warmth, lots of warmth. The fighting has moved to a neighbouring area. We are mesmerised by the fire and are compelled against our will to fantasize about a large stove, a deep chair, or a soft bed in which one could sleep for an entire night without wearing these clothes that are stiff from dirt, or without being tortured by pests, or without having to have our weapons within arm's reach. The 26th of December. The front is thin. At night we receive orders to distance ourselves from the enemy. To the south, the Bolsheviks have succeeded at breaking deep into the front. Our right flank has been seriously threatened. Overnight, the Reds took Dmitrievskoye. Our group is supposed to retreat to Troyskoye. Our squad, remains behind for protection. The enemy tries to push after us. All day long, the rattling of machine guns does not stop. All day long, the squad huddles in their holes and defends themselves against the enemy. Only on the following night is our squad able to meet up with the battalion, find our way through the snow desert with the help of a compass, and take a new position near Troyskoye, which the Sturmpionieren have blasted into the icy ground. The 27th of December. Grey clouds cover the skies. Mighty untamed storms drive icy needles into our faces. Up in the black trees, crows are cawing. This time, though, we fare better, taking turns so that we can warm ourselves inside the dilapidated huts. There we sit and stare into the open fire. Each of us is occupied in his own thoughts. There is great unrest inside me. I feel that some sort of enormous atrocity is brewing against us. As my comrades all of a sudden cling blindly to my predictions, good or bad, I must not show my feelings. The crackling wood also allows our thoughts to wander down pleasant paths. We are thinking of home. The devil knows what kind of winter it would have been, someone says. Not having to finish his sentence, we all know what he means. If this barrel would have started rolling, which was hit so hard near Bialystok and Minsk, near Gomel and Kiev, and near Bryansk or Vyazma, what kind of winter would it have been back in Germany? These days we think about this often.